Did the Titanic, which took 1,200 days to build, sink in just 2 hours? On April 10, 1912, the Titanic, the largest and most luxurious ship in the world, was ready for its maiden voyage. That day, the Atlantic Ocean was incredibly calm and there was no sign of a storm approaching. There were also 1,500 passengers aboard the ship and millions of people were standing to see the first journey of the Titanic. Neither the passengers nor the millions of people who had said goodbye nor the staff of the Titanic knew that while making the ship, which was going to leave in a short time, 6 such mistakes had been made which would make this ship a victim of the worst accident. Today you will know the 6 such mistakes of the most expensive, most luxury and most powerful ship of its time, the Titanic, which if not done would probably be famous in the world today, not because of the Titanic crash, but because of its success. The White Star Line, the company operating the Titanic, which had the experience of operating 107 ships, did not even see these mistakes. And even Harland and Wolff, the company that manufactured Titanic, did not see these mistakes. And after about 3 years and the hard work of 2,000 workers, the ship was ready. Now the ship was completely ready. But the phase of testing it was yet to be done. The trust of the Titanic builders in it increased when the Titanic had successfully passed its first test run. As soon as it passed the test, it was marketed in various newspapers all over the world. The ship's first voyage was to start from the English city of Southampton, whose day was fixed for April 10, 1912, and whose destination was the American city of New York. The cost of traveling in the economy of Titanic was $30, while traveling in the first class was $50, which is $34000 in today's era. The results of this marketing, all the tickets were booked suddenly, and finally the day came when the Titanic was about to start its first journey. Mistake number 1, at exactly 12 noon, the Titanic started its first journey, and at the same time, the mistakes of the Titanic started coming out. Captain Smith had got a deadline from Cannes that in any case, by April 17th, that is, only 7. It is to reach New York in a few days. That is why the captain had kept the speed of the ship very fast from the beginning, and this was the first mistake of the Titanic. Captain Smith had to reach New York as quickly as possible due to the directions and pressure from the owner because it was the Titanic's maiden voyage, and if he did not arrive by New York time, the Titanic's reputation would have been severely damaged. Any vehicle, machine or ship in the world has many operating procedures, one of which is the speed limit, and that part was violated at the start of the Titanic's journey. It didn't take long for the ship to leave the port of Southampton so far behind that only the blue ocean was visible. Mistake number 2. Now the Titanic had been running for 3 days with brief stops in France and Ireland. Besides, Titanic had been sailing toward New York for the past 72 hours. This was the evening of April 14, 1912. The setting was a reportedly silent ocean cloaked in fog, significantly reducing visibility. The captain of another ship, merely a few hours ahead of the Titanic, sent a wireless warning about icebergs present in the ocean. Experts estimate that this warning was issued at least 6 times, but due to the wireless operator's negligence, these crucial warnings were overlooked, probably seeming routine to them. However, this was Titanic crew's second mistake. Titanic was the first luxury ship of its kind carrying numerous VIPs. As a result, most of Titanic's crew was occupied in serving first-class passengers. Had these warnings been taken seriously, the subsequent scene could have been entirely different. Mistake number 3 was that the ship's speed was too high and they had also missed a critical warning. The Titanic was fearlessly and rapidly approaching the iceberg's range, but it could still be saved because the ship's guards were vigilant, prepared to alert the captain about any iceberg. However, due to the lack of binoculars, they couldn't see the iceberg from a distance. This was the Titanic's third mistake. News of the iceberg didn't reach Captain Smith until the ship's guards reported a football field-sized iceberg right in front of them. But by then, it was too late. Mistake number 4 lies in the fact that in the Atlantic Ocean, ships often come into contact with icebergs that even large ships can handle with ease. Captain Smith may have thought the same. The news about the iceberg got to Captain Smith when the ship's guards trying to alert about the iceberg the size of a football field in front of them, but it was already too late. As soon as the news of the iceberg was received, Captain Smith ordered the engine of the ship to be turned off and also ordered to change the direction of the Titanic. Of course, Captain Smith tried very hard to avoid the iceberg, but the gap was so short that doing anything proved to be useless. The iceberg had now collided with the center of the Titanic, but there was still a lot of hope left for the Titanic to survive. It was expected that the iceberg might not damage the body of the ship, or the iceberg would break itself as soon as it hit the ship, and perhaps it would have been the same if the fourth mistake of the Titanic did not show its work. Experts believe that the rivets that were on the body of the Titanic, it was not made of steel, but of cast iron. The work of these rivets is to keep large pieces of iron together. But since cast iron is softer than steel, due to this, the place where the iceberg hit the body of the Titanic, the rivets opened due to pressure, and then what happened to Captain Smith? Mistake number 5. The Titanic had collided with an iceberg as big as a football field, and now the bottom of the ship was starting to fill with water. This dangerous spectacle alerted the entire staff and passengers as well as Joseph Bruce, the Titanic's owner, who was aboard. Undoubtedly, water had started to fill up in the Titanic, but there was still a flicker of hope for its survival because the Titanic was designed in such a way that even if 3 of its floors were inundated, it wouldn't sink. Alas, the grim situation was that the water had not only filled these 3 floors, but had reached the 4th one. The problem at hand was getting out of control, and the Titanic was gradually submerging in the ocean. It was now time to prioritize saving the lives of the passengers on board. Remaining calm, Captain Smith issued an emergency alert via the radio. The plan was, by the time help arrived, the passengers would have been moved to the lifeboats. However, this is where the 5th negligence came into light. Yes, there were in total 32 lifeboats on the ship, but due to oversight, only 20 were available. This was a huge problem given the fact that there were 1,500 passengers and there were merely 20 lifeboats. Mistake number 6, there was chaos everywhere and everyone wanted to board the selected life-saving boats. The first emergency boat was launched into the sea at 12:45, but another 6th mistake occurred here. The boats were launched into the sea without being fully filled in the chaos. Mostly the first-class passengers, the wealthier people, were given priority to be seated first in the boats. If more passengers had been accommodated in the boats, more human lives could have been saved. The ship was now rapidly sinking into the sea due to a short circuit at 2:18. All the lights of the Titanic were turned off and the ship broke into 2 parts in the next moment. The Titanic took 2 hours and 40 minutes to completely sink into the sea, resulting in the death of 1,500 people in the cold water of the Atlantic Ocean. Also, let me tell you that the water temperature was -2 degrees Celsius at that time, meaning if the passengers had jumped into this cold water, there would have been no chance of survival because humans cannot survive for more than 30 minutes in such low temperatures. It is said that the number of deaths was much more than 1,500 because many people who were familiar with the ship's staff were there on the ship without being on the ship's long. Most number of those who survived were children and women. On the other side was Captain Smith, who spent all his time saving lives. And he was the last man who jumped from the sinking ship, hopefully. You will also like and share this video. Thank you very much for the loving comments of people. See you in the next great video.